there wasn't ever one of those like long, planned out proposals where I take her to the perfect spot and get out the ring or whatever. We were together one April 1st, and I thought, what better time to ask her to marry me but April Fool's Day.
That way she says,
April Fool.
That's good. So
I knew
clever.
it was
So clever.
But, anyway.
So how long did you date before you got married?
3 years.
3 years. And so tell me about this wedding experience.
Okay. So my dad was going to perform the ceremony.
Yeah.
And her parents lived a little ways out of town. She lived in an apartment that the church owned adjacent to the church, and that's where we were going to move into. I was the youth pastor by that time at that church, and between us we had several jobs or hats that we would put around the church or whatever. So we were going to move into that place. And so to get all my stuff in, we were going to have to move some of her stuff out. So this was a few days before the wedding. This is incident number 1, you might call it.
Okay. My mom lived in Somerville.
And so we were going to take a bunch of stuff out to her mom's place. We got my dad's truck, put a bunch of stuff in it, went out there. We were coming back. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and the truck ran out of gas. And there's like nobody on that road at 1 o'clock in the morning. So we had to walk for a very long way before somebody finally picked us up. So we got through that incident. And then we get to Friday, the day before the wedding. And my dad was working a construction job in Mendon, and we got a call that he had fallen off of a 2-story roof onto a pile of bricks. And so he was being rushed to the hospital, and we're in the process of preparing for the rehearsal dinner and rehearsal and all that stuff that night. And so we rushed down to Mendon, and he's in the emergency room, and his pelvis is busted and his ribs are busted and just all this stuff, but he's still conscious. And so I go in and see him, and he said, get my keys and go to the job site and get my truck and take it to the house. He said, you should have enough gas to get home. And so I got his keys, we went out to the job site, I got in his truck, we went to, I started going in about maybe 10 miles from the house, it ran out of gas. By the way, the gas gauge didn't work. But in retrospect, what he said was, you should have enough gas to get to Homer, not to get home.
Yeah.
So, incident number 2.
And then he insisted, his dad did, that we were going to get married. He said he didn't want us to change the date because we didn't really have a lot of money. We didn't think we could put it off and redo everything. So he said, no, y'all are gonna go through with it. So
and we had people already there from out of town and all kind of stuff. And so we got the local pastor to say, okay, we need you to do the ceremony. And so we got everything ready for the rehearsal dinner. And rehearsal. And right before that, I got a call from my best man. His dad had a heart attack, was in the hospital, so he wasn't going to be able to make it to rehearsal. And so, please, take care of your dad. Yeah. And so, anyway, we get through the rehearsal, and so the next day, my dad is going to be in surgery at 1. The start of the wedding was at 1.
Oh wow!
And so now, I might as well say too that she was the church sweetheart. So I'm marrying the church sweetheart.
She grew up.
She grew up. Everybody loved her.
16.
And if you know Terry, you know how sweet she is, and so everybody loved Terry.
Plays piano too?
No, never successfully.
I
wanted to, never successfully.
I don't play anything, even a recorder. I cheated. But go ahead.
So anyway, and so she was very endeared at that church, and so that plus my family, we'd kind of become loved at that church as well, and so it was like 2 people were getting married that everybody really felt like they had a stake in.
Right.
And with all this going on, my dad's in surgery and my mom's there in tears, and everybody's just wailing.
We had our parents come up on the platform to say something, to offer a prayer or whatever during the ceremony, and when she spoke, there was not a dry eye.
So anyway, we get through that. There were a couple of little technical glitches I'll just leave out of the story for right now. I'm a technical guy, right? So I had all this stuff planned out, and things don't always go according to the plan. So we get to the rehearsal. What do you call it? Reception. We get to the reception, which is at my parents' house. And what's on my mind is I got to get down to Minden. You know, my dad will be coming out of surgery soon or whatever. And so that's kind of what was on our mind. But we stood in this one place, and everybody files by so we can, shake their hand, hug their neck, or whatever. And we had, since I was the youth pastor, we had all of the youth had some part. You know, they were either candlelighters or ushers or different things. And so we had this one particular girl that was one of the cake servers that had epilepsy. Well, she had a seizure and fell into the table, and our 5-tier cake went.
Oh my goodness.
And so her brother was super embarrassed about it, and so he bolted out the door and started running down the road. And so now I have a youth crisis in the middle of my reception. And so I whispered to my best man, will you go after him and try to take care of that or whatever. And so anyway, we kind of get through all those stuff you're supposed to do there, and we go out. And as soon as we had gone upstairs and both of us changed and we came down to the bottom of the stairs, and all the groomsmen grabbed Terry and ran off with her. And I pulled my best man aside and I said, we can't do this right now. So, I'm sorry to spoil your fun. And so anyway, he went and got her, and so we got in our car, and they had it all decorated. It was Terry's Ford LTD2 green.
A tank.
And so they wrote "just married" on it and all that. So we stopped a little further down the road to kind of wash all that off. And come to find out, they had wrote it in menthol shaving cream, so it took the paint off down to the primer. So now we had "just married" permanently etched in the car. And so we get down, and probably the best moment of the whole day, maybe, is when.
Well, that's hard to say.
That's a while ago. Anyway, but we got to the hospital and got up to the room at the moment that they were wheeling my dad out. He was just waking up or whatever, and somebody's taking him to a room, and he looked at us and he said, "Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Alexis." And that was the first time we had been called that, so that was kind of neat. So anyway, so we go to Dallas. I mean, we didn't have money for Jamaica or anything like that, so we go to Dallas for our honeymoon and stayed there for however many days. And my grandparents lived in De Leon, Texas, which is about 90 miles to the other side of Fort Worth. And so we had planned on, we're going to go out there and see them for a couple of days, and then we'll come back by.
We were really close to that.
Yeah. And so we drove out there, and on the first night that we were there, the power goes off in the house. And so it wakes us up because this is August, the first week of August in West Texas. So it was a little warm. And so we wake up, and what's going on? So we walk outside and we look down the road and we see this big orange glow. We'll come to find out there was a feed store that had caught on fire, which was probably less than a mile from their house. And so they came, the sheriff's department started coming by evacuating everybody because apparently they had stored, for some reason, they had some stored Agent Orange in this place.
Oh my!
That was on fire, and so it was a town of 2,000. They evacuated.
It's like you want corn or Agent Orange or a tomato plant. I'm just good. It's funny.
So my poor grandpa, he was 80 something at the time. He said, I've lived here most of my life. I've never had to evacuate my home before. It's like, it's our fault. I'm sorry. So anyway, we get through all of that, and we get back home.
And we had 3 cars between us at the time. We had the tank that we took that was full of stuff, and we had my car, a different car that didn't run, and his, which was a Maverick. And so he was unloading the car, and I said, well, I'm going to go get us some chicken from Chickadilly because we didn't have any food in the house. So I'm, happily married, little lady, driving to Chickadilly, got my chicken. About halfway back to the house, blue lights came on behind me, and I was like, oh no. And so the police officer, I pulled over, he stopped me, and he came up, he said, I need you to turn the car off and get out. And so I said, okay. And I stood up, and I was crying. He said, what's wrong? I said, well, just got home from my honeymoon and I just needed to go get some chicken. And I was just bawling my eyes out. And he said, well, it's okay, it's okay. He said, your registration's expired, sorry. And he said, so just take care of it. I said, well, it's my husband's car, and I didn't know. He said, it's okay, just get in and go home, it'll be all right.
You married an outlaw.
So he left immediately, and I finally got myself together, got back in the car, and turned the ignition. Nothing happened. Nothing happened, and it wouldn't come on at all. So I had to take my chicken and walk home.
That's so funny.
So it's been smooth sailing. We got all the bad stuff out of the way the first week, and so we've been happily
We're
married.
eventful people.
Yeah.
We don't do it.
So.
What?